iRacing right now.
He's got tracks and he's going in the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top!
Oh my God! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled!
Six very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Season 4 2019, round number 4 of the iRacing V8 Supercars official series. Here tonight from Donington Park Raceway in the UK, where we are going to be having around 26 or 25 V8 Supercars traveling around this evening. And it's going to be an absolutely fantastic night of racing. We've already seen some good standings from the boys in the AOSC series prior to the weekend. So there's definitely some anticipation for some good racing. Qualifying is currently underway with James Mackay sitting on top of the tables, but Forzan Elnabi currently getting around and looking to put himself on top of the timesheets. Joining me up in the commentary booth this evening is Mr. Ryan Jones, and Jake Kennedy will be flicking all the beautiful buttons to bring the pictures that you see this evening. And Ryan, we're going to be having a pretty long race here. Going to be a little bit of strategy involved, but the low track temperature is obviously going to help these guys with the tyre wear.
Yeah, it certainly will. Only 26 degrees track temperature. There's a fair amount of grip out there for these boys to play with, and should only be a one-stop strategy for most of these guys as well, which means going to be almost a 35-lap sprint race, I think, with these guys. Won't have to worry too much about their tyres. Of course, they are going to wear out. It's a supercar. These things, they're not too nice to their tyres in any sense of the word, but it should be a good race. There's Elnabi. He's just come across the line by 28.355, and that puts him up onto provisional pole position.
Yeah, very nice lap there from Forzan and that great-looking Omen Zero Esports car. Wayne Burke, someone we haven't seen for a while on the top of the timesheets here in the official series in his one performance racing machine. Not going to be a very good lap there. I think I'm going to put him in P21. Definitely going to have to go around again for Wayne Burke. But he's put in some good performances in this series in the past, and definitely expect him to be at the top of the timesheets if he can get a lap together. Corey Preston struggling a little bit there in his EXG Motorsports machine, and Brenton Hobson decides to bail out of his final attempt at qualifying and come in for some pit practice, getting very sideways on the entry there. But currently Forzan Elnabi tops the timesheets with James Mackay just behind, and James Scott rounding out the podium position for qualifying. And Simon Mazzomo, who wasn't expecting to be in this race this evening, is coming towards the end of one of his qualifying laps. Very tight chicane down there into the short run down into the hairpin. This is going to be a good opportunity for some overtakes this evening, and we will see quite a few overtakes. Saw the guys in AOSC on Friday night getting a few done, so definitely going to expect a few this evening.
Yeah, that penultimate corner going to be probably the prime overtaking spot on this racetrack. Maybe that last corner that Mizoma's just gone through, if you can get a good exit. And speaking of good exits, we'll see if Mizoma's got one as he comes across the line. Doesn't really, well, he improves on his last line, but not by much. He will stay back there in 24th position, and he'll have his work cut out for him in the race. As I go ahead and mute my phone. Sorry, fellas, if you heard that one. But I think that's pretty much everyone who's finished their quali laps now, and that's the end of qualifying.
Yeah, Brendan Jackson, the only driver not to set a lap. But Forzan El Nabi for Zero Esports will take us away from pole position this evening. Great lap from him. James Mackay in Pursuit Sim Racing cars will start alongside him on the front row. James Scott for Evolution Racing Team will start from third alongside Damien Johnston in his Gone Rogue Motorsports machine. Chris Coxhead in his V8 Sleuth Esports car will start alongside Brett Cananzi's Eclipse Sim Sports machine on the third row of the grid. They'll be trailed closely by Corey Preston and Brenton Hobson. Then in ninth position, we have Michael Taliancic, the team boss down there at Pursuit Sim Racing, starting just inside the top 10, alongside Zero Esports' Ben Christensen.
Just inside the top 10 will be Shawn Thompson and Scott O'Keefe, Jamie Stavold and Steve Jansen lining up 13th and 14th. Craig Jones, Rob Harris on the 8th row of the grid, ahead of Raiden Nash, Greg Sharp, Christian Smart, Mihail Latishov in 20th place.
And then we'll have rounding out our grid this evening, and a couple of names surprised to see so far down: Wayne Burke and Brenton O'Brien. Wayne definitely a little bit higher, but Brenton would have expected him just inside the top 15 there. He might be able to work his way up through the grid over the course of the race. Then we have Scott Stevens in 23rd, Simon Mizomo in 24th, the last car to set a time, and Brendan Jackson for Valkyrie Sim Racing, who was not able to set a time this evening. Track temperature currently at 26 degrees, which is fairly low. It's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So track temperature may rise just a little bit, but it's definitely looking quite cool here in the UK. And thanks to iRacing for giving us the opportunity once again to come to one of these tracks that we would normally not see on the Australian calendar as the revs start to rise here at Donington Raceway. And we are green, and it's a good start there from Forzan El Nabi on pole position. He's being run down to the corner by James Mackay, though, who's trying to force Forzan into an uncomfortable position. There's a little bit of contact there between Scott and Johnston, and Chris Coxhead's getting caught up in that mess as well. A little bit of bumper trouble for him as Brenton Hobson goes round the outside down into the S's for the first time here, as 25 V8 Supercars dive down the hill here at Donington through the very fast and uncomfortable sweeping right-hander, and saw a car just getting tangled up a little bit in the background, but most of the cars for the most part are through very nicely as Brenton O'Brien is getting on with another car further back in the field there, but our two front row sitting cars have run away in the first couple of corners. They've already got a fairly sizable margin to James Scott, and Mackay already having a little bit of a look across the road here and trying to force Forzan into a position where he can start setting it up for an overtake. A little bit of oversteer coming out of the chicane there and into the slow hairpin section for the first time. You can see the two different approaches to the corner there. Forzan very much diving for that first apex and shooting out of there very nicely. Wayne Burke at the back of the field moving his way past Simon Mizomo there. We're just going to get a modem simulation replay of some of the first lap here, and this is Wayne Burke, who was trying to make his way through the field at this stage. Coming down the back straight here. Oh, big moment for him. And slowing down as well. Very peculiar there for Wayne Burke. Big oversteer moment. Not sure why he did slow so much coming out of that, but Nevertheless, he has plenty of cars to overtake for the rest of this race as we get back up to this pack here with Chris Coxhead having a little bit of a battle here with Brett Cananzi.
Coxhead trying his best to hold off Cananzi for that 6th place as he has a little bit of a look into turn 7. He can't quite get up there. And these guys want to sort themselves out relatively quickly. Everyone's pretty much single-filed themselves out up and down throughout this field at the moment. And now everyone just trying to fight for the next spot, make way up the order. Bit of damage to one car. Corey Preston back in 8th place. He's missing his rear bonnet on my screen at least. And having a look at the broadcast, looks like his car's pretty much alright. So we'll cross track that. But I'll mention Corey Preston. He's got a brand new team for this week. He's with XG Motorsports as well after leaving JMSR. And there's Michael Taliantich, and there is Corey Preston in those brand new XG Motorsport colours for himself. We're looking to make a good first impression today as he's just in behind this 3-car battle almost. There's a side-by-side behind them sorting themselves out. That was Scott O'Keefe and Shawn Thompson, and Thompson making his way through up into P number 11.
Yeah, good little battle further back in the pack there. Those guys are starting to get a little bit heavy with each other. And just behind them as well, Rob Harris, Simon Mazzomo, and Mihail Ladishov with Scott Stevens in there as well, having a nice little battle, which is headed by Brendan Jackson and his Valkyrie sim racing machine at the moment. And those guys were having a nice little tiff through the hairpin section towards the end of the lap there. And go back now up to Brenton Hobson, who's already +3 positions since the start of this race. Got a great run through the first lap, but coming under a little bit of pressure now from Chris Coxhead, who's been able to pick up momentum after playing a little bit of bumper cars early in lap number 1. And Brett Cananzi applying some pressure to him as well. Corey Preston tucked in just behind them, and looking good in those EXG cars, as you said, Ryan. And I definitely stayed at the back of one of those EXG cars for a long time during the Bathurst 1000 as Corey Preston actually goes for a move there on Brett Cananzi. And, well, it seems like his bonnet is gone, or his boot is gone now. Ryan possibly living in the future a little bit there, a little bit of a premonition. And unfortunately for Corey, Brett's been able to defend that position, has actually put Corey in a little bit of a precarious position here because he has the number 22 car of Brent Christensen looking around the outside. He's going to try and swing it back in, almost rubbing the rear bumper there of Corey Preston is Ben, and not quite able to get the move done into turn 1 there. So he's going to have to find another way to get around, but Brett Cananzi holds on to position number 7 for the time being, defending from Corey Preston. That's just allowed now Chris Coxhead to get a little bit of breathing room and perhaps apply a little bit more of that pressure that he was hoping to get onto Brenton Hobson into effect as Brenton just runs a little bit deep into that corner there. Chris Coxhead with a much better exit, starting to close up, has a little bit of a look into the right-hander, much tighter on the front end for Chris Coxhead, just really getting the nicer drive out of the corner as well. Staying right with Hobbo here, but he's going to opt to try and go for it down into the Melbourne hairpin, which I've only just learned is called the Melbourne hairpin, but it's a great city, so I'll stick with it. As he is not quite close enough here. Very good on the brakes, running a little bit deep, a little bit of an alternate line there to Brenton, but just not working for him at the moment, despite having various little looks around this lap, and that's already allowing Brett Cananzi to close back up once again. And I think Corey Preston's had a little bit of an issue as well in his machine, because he was just behind Brett Cananzi and is now not showing up on my timing screen. Yeah, so something's happened there to Corey Preston. But this little battle here for 7th position starting to heat up.
It certainly is, and does look like Coxhead's just got a bit of a pace advantage over Brenton Hobson, but he's unable to get the move done to see a couple corners to go. And there's a few cars behind these guys that do start battling. Guys like Cananzi, Christensen, and Thompson who are battling, as well as Taliantich and Scott O'Keefe. O'Keefe just got right out sideways coming out of turn number 7. Now he's defending from from Steve Jansen into turn 8, but Anson's going to get that inside and move past him as another wiggle from O'Keefe. He's been struggling for this last lap. I've been watching him. He's been really struggling on exits. Just might have hit those tyres up a bit too much, and now he's struggling to get them back under tempers. Oh, Hanson's gone straight across the S's that weirdly called, even though it's a chicane. As here comes Stivald now to make a advantage of this, but late on the brakes, Steve Jansen, that number 13 car, only try and get the drive off the corner. He's not quite gonna get it. It looks like Stivald's just gonna clear him on this run down. As look at this contact further up. Shawn Thompson and Michael Taliantich, and Taliantich comes off worse from that one. He has to tuck back into 10th place as this battle's starting to explode into life now up and down this field.
Yeah, Christensen just lost a spot to Shawn Thompson there, and Michael Taliantich tried to get a little bit greedy there and didn't work out for him. And in the meantime as well, Chris Coxhead has moved through on Brenton Hobson. We'll get a modem simulation replay of that one for you as Brenton has to defend, not giving up. He actually tried to hold it around the outside there and did a fairly nice job. But Chris Coxhead having that inside line for the first part, and Brenton just tucking in there. It's very difficult to go 2x2 through that section of the track, especially in a V8 supercar. But Brenton giving up that position, and we'll see if Chris Coxhead is now able to start catching up to Damien Johnston. Damien's got quite a sizable gap, about 3 seconds up to him for 4th position for Chris Coxhead, so some work to do. And Brett Cananzi might also start applying a lot of pressure here to Brenton Hobson, who's just not looking to have the pace. Got a great start, and lap 1 worked very well for him, but since then he's just started to just look to struggle a little bit for absolute pace here, and qualifying a few spots lower, that might be more where he is destined to sit towards the later stage of this race. As we're just coming up on a quarter way through, and Brett Cananzi already having a little bit of a look, and Brenton Hobson, I don't think he was expecting that too much, and Brett Cananzi's going to have to be very bold here to go around the outside. He's going to try it, but just eternal understeer on the outside of that corner as the camber starts to run out, and Brett learning the hard way, giving up a little bit of time, but he will definitely have another opportunity at some point in the near future, because he definitely looks to have some good pace in that car. And Brenton Hobson, as we said, just starting to struggle a little bit.
Yeah, he certainly is. He's not looking comfortable in that car. And now look at the run that Cananzi's got down this back straight, pushing him down this back straight, having a look into the S's. Probably wisely decides against it, but he's locked up, and that's going to cost him the opportunity to have a lunge into the Melbourne hairpin. And he was getting that thing all sorts of crossed up coming out of the corner there. We'll get a motor simulation replay up on screen. This is the onboard from Cananzi. You can see there, struggling to get it turned in, and then suddenly it turns in, but right, they didn't want it to. And good job to recover from that, not lose too much time, but he's lost about 5 car lengths to Brenton Hobson. He's going to have to make back up now as down the order they continue to battle. This is Steve Jansen still on the wars, this time being trying to go on the attack against Scott O'Keefe. Can't make it work. He was forced to go the long way around. Now he's going to have a lunge and look up the inside at turn 1, but he's going to think better of it. Look at that behind him. That was Craig Jones sending it into the corner. Now there's going to be contact, and he's going to save it. That was Stivald getting into the back of him. That was great driving from Jones and Stivald, not to result in a spin there, but that was extremely late on the brakes from Craig Jones.
Yeah, a little bit of a little bit of crossing up there between Craig Jones and Stovald there, and Steve Jansen not quite able to pull the car up to get a move done. And Craig Jones is very brave on the brakes, and Stovald just went for the over-under there, and there wasn't quite enough room for the car to get through. Probably just needed to back out of that one, unfortunately, but luckily both of those cars escape, and Jamie Stovald's actually managed to make his way back through, but he's going to have the wrong line coming into this chicane here, and has to give it up to Craig Jones. He's going to, okay, not the line I would have decided to go through, but that's an interesting way to go through for those guys. And Christian Smart's having a little bit of a look as well. It's getting a little bit desperate here between these guys, and Christian Smart as well is getting heavily involved, and that's, I believe, Wayne Burke, who's been making his way through the field. And we are going to get a modem simulation replay here of James Mackay, because we actually have a new leader of the race here. And oh, that's Forzan El Nabi getting very, very crossed up on the entry into the corner there, and loses out to Mackay big time. So small mistake, big cost for Forzan El Nabi there. And now Pursuit Sim Racing have the lead of this race, and James Mackay is going to try and stretch his legs, but Forzan's been looking very in control of this race. Might just see if he decides to save any fuel here, but they are allowed a lot of fuel in this race. I believe they're actually allowed a full tank, so it'd be interesting to see how far these guys go if they do pit, because I think potentially these guys may not be pitting this evening, but we'll see, because there's quite a lot of laps to go in this race, and we're already about 15 minutes in, so it's going to be close to an hour this evening, and that is, I think, borderline on what these cars can do to a tank. So we'll have to see how we go. But one of the great things about this series is that not every race is the same. Different lengths, different strategies, different fuel loads. And we'll see if any of the guys decide to come in this evening and take the pit. The track temperature at the moment still 26 degrees. So these guys, while managing tyres in a V8 Supercar is difficult, it will be helped by the cool track temperatures that these guys are experiencing at the moment. But Brett Cananzi now just trying to pull away from Shawn Thompson, who's actually been really pulling in that gap to Brett Cananzi quite well. And Brett's made a little bit of a mistake because he's fallen off Brenton Hobson as well quite heavily, I think. Sitting about 2 seconds behind Brenton Hobson. So yeah, Brett Cananzi was literally just almost, in fact he was pushing Brenton Hobson down this straight just a few laps ago, so he's lost a lot of ground to the Synergy Sim Racing driver.
He has. Tell me about that. I'm watching the battle up here in second, first and third place. El Nabi made a bit of a mistake coming into turn 9 and 10, coming under pressure now from James Scott as a result. So just sorted himself out, but that mistake from El Nabi, bit of a costly one that, because he had the lead of the race. He was pretty much maintaining the gap over James Mackay. It seemed that the pace is pretty much the same, at least in the early stages, and he's pretty much gotten ahead of that lead to James Mackay. And if the pace is the same, he's going to be relying on a mistake from Mackay now to let him back through. Otherwise, he's now 8 tenths behind him. And easier said than done to make an overtake stick at this racetrack as well.
Yeah, it's probably a little bit easier in a V8 Supercar just because of the opportunities that you get from it being so much easier to make a mistake. But when these guys are in such good training, very rare that we see mistakes. Although, you know, as we said, Forzan has just made a mistake to give up the lead, and we have seen mistakes from a lot of these drivers in the past. So definitely not out of the realms of possibility for Forzan El Nabi, but he really needs to get back up to James Mackay so he can start applying that pressure, because that pressure is basically one of the key important things to forcing your opponent into a mistake. You can even see Forzan, whoa, very, very late and perhaps just very deep on the brakes there. He's got a preferred line through that hairpin there that seems to be quite different to a lot of our other competitors this evening, but he's led the race and has been very fast, and he got great drive out of that corner. So who are we to say what's good? But it definitely looks interesting, especially when James Mackay just ahead of him has such a differing line there. But it's working for them at the moment, and hopefully it'll continue working for the rest of the race, because it can be funny when you have two drivers running such different lines. You can get that overlap when the drivers get just close enough that they're not quite able to pass each other, but still, you know, the car behind's catching, and you get that overlap, and you can have a little bit of a coming together if you're not careful. So those guys will just have to pay attention to the different lines that they're running and know how close they can get given the difference in speed of the cars at the moment. Just having a look back in position number 10 with Michael Taliancic and Ben Christensen, and Michael is applying a good amount of pressure there. Having a little bit of a look. Oh, not sure he was quite close enough there, but luckily for him, Ben has left the door open enough and welcomed him through. And now Michael Taliancic is going to have to brake very deep into the chicane here, and Ben has given up that position rather easily by normal V8 Supercar standards on the iRacing service. It definitely has to be said. He's having a little bit of a fight back though, trying to go round the outside. Has to watch out for that Gone Rogue Motorsports car just behind there so that they don't overlap each other, but it's working for them for the time being. So we head back up to the lead of the race. We're on board with James Scott in his Evolution Racing Team machine, trailing Forzan El Nabi's Zero Esports car, and they are in the hunt. Pursuit Sim Racing's James Mackay, who has only led the race for the last couple of laps after a mistake from Forzan, and now he is on a charge to regain control of this race. It's not going to be easy though. Mackay's been putting in fast lap times and has been very composed, not showing any signs at this stage of making a mistake, as we're coming up to just over a third's race distance now. And those leaders not streaking too far away. Damien Johnston just 2.5 seconds behind those guys, and a little trail here of Brenton Hobson, Brett Cananzi, and Brett, after being a few seconds back, has now regained his composure and is back in the hunt of Brenton Hobson, who's sitting in his rightful position there, but I get the feeling that it's going to be taken away from him fairly soon.
Yeah, I think you might be right there. Cananzi definitely looks to have the pace advantage over Hobson. He was a full quick mouse, 7 tenths quicker than him last time by, and 7 tenths is quite a lot on a 1:30 racetrack. As you see, has a look into the final corner, almost got into the left rear of Brenton Hobson. He's got to be careful when he does make a move that he either makes it stick or tucks back in behind Hobson as soon as he can, because Shawn Thompson's there as well in 8th place, and he's keen to make up some spots, and he could very easily get his nose or his car up the inside if Cananzi finds himself on the outside of a corner, if Hobson decides to fight hard, which I feel like Hobson probably will fight for this spot. He won't want to give it up too easily, and as you say, it is his rightful spot in the 6th place. I don't know what it is about Hobson in the 6th place, but he just seems to gravitate towards that position.
Yeah, it's just one of those things, isn't it? I mean, no one really has an answer for why it happens. All that we know is that it just does. And, you know, it could hold true tonight. He might be able to hold these guys off and end up in 6th, but he's in car number 6 this evening as well, so it would be only fitting. And, well, we still have 21 laps to figure out if that's going to be the case or not, but he's going to have to put up a pretty resilient effort if he wants to maintain his rightful position, because Shawn Thompson has been closing in at quite a rapid rate on both him and Cananzi, and Cananzi's now looking very feisty, gives him a little bit of a bumper there as they come out of the Melbourne hairpin. Cananzi couldn't find it round the long way last time. It's going to go down the inside. Hobson holding the outside line. That's going to give him the preferred line into turn number 1. But he's going to have a little bit of a drag race down into 1 to get it done. And Cananzi's going to have to be very brave, very late on the brakes, and commandingly swings round in front of the Synergy Sim racing car. A little bit squirmy on the exit, but job done for Brett Cananzi. He moves himself up into the Brenton Hobson position, and Brenton will have to settle now with 7th, but he's got a very hungry Shawn Thompson sitting just behind him, who's looking in good form and will probably want to follow Brett Cananzi up to our leaders, because the gap is fairly significant up to Chris Coxhead, about 6 seconds up the road. So they've still got 21 laps. It's definitely an achievable target for these guys, especially with the pace that they've been showing the last couple of laps. And if these guys aren't going to be pitting, a little bit of tyre conservation from some of the drivers in no man's land might lend them a little bit of a helping hand towards the end of the race. James Mackay, though, in the lead of this race, coming under pressure once again from Forzan El Nabi, who's looking to reclaim that position. But ERT's James Scott is also sitting in there very intently, looking for any sign of weakness and any mistake here to pounce and take a position away from either of these drivers. I'm sure he would be happy to do it in a heartbeat, but no opportunities rising for him at the moment. Okay, so we are going to be getting some pit stops this evening, and Shawn Thompson is the first person to come into the pits, and that will give him a little bit of an undercut, which is basically, for those of you at home who don't know, where the fresher tires that are on the car allow you to push a little harder and go a little faster. And subsequently, when your opponents come into pit, you will have been ever so slightly faster than them for a few laps, which will hopefully get a position. And it's not worked for Shawn Thompson at all, because Brenton O'Brien was coming through turn number 1 there, and Shawn did not really give any way there to the Evolution Racing Team car. We'll just see Brenton on board here, and yeah, that's awkward on both sides there, I think.
I think that could have been a little bit better from both parties there. Unfortunate, just sort of the nature of pit exit here at Donington is it deposits you right onto that racing line and right onto the apex. Here comes El Nabi now. He bites the bullet, comes down into pit road, and he'll look to make the service and hopefully have a better pit exit than Shawn Thompson did as well. As behind him, in comes the number 7 car as well. That is Damien Johnstone. If we're going to replay up on screen, this is Damien Johnstone, and this is him coming into pit lane. And that was a little bit adventurous, that pit entry. Almost cleaned up the wall, but did a good job to keep that car straight. As here comes Anabi, dumping the throttle, coming out of pit lane, and he's got fresh track all around him, and as does Damien Johnston. No issues with cars already out on the racetrack, so good news for them. Also in the lanes, Ben Christensen from Zero Esports and Scott O'Keefe from Going Rogue Motorsports, and Christian Smart, O'Keefe's teammate. And there is Shawn Thompson. He's now in 18th place. We'll see in a little bit how much time that contact has cost him, and I suspect it will have cost him in that battle with Hobson and Kananzi. This is the battle for 9th place. Wayne Burke and Jamie Stavold making the way up and around into turn 8. And Stavold looking on as Burke's on up from 21st up in a 12th place now. He's up 12 spots. Gained a few spots through pit stops as well, but doing a pretty good job on this race is Wayne Burke. After we touched on at the start of the race before the green flag flew that a bit further down than we would have expected, Zach, but he's done a great job so far.
Yeah, it's also really difficult to get through traffic here at Donington, so an A+ effort from Wayne Burke so far in his One Performance racing machine. And as I said, and we were talking about earlier, he definitely has some good pace in that car, just not able to put in a qualifying performance this evening, as a couple of cars deciding to come into the pits, this time by Jamie Stovall, Craig Jones, and there's another car I saw coming in just before as well. Yeah, Chris Coxhead, who's just exiting the pit lane now, and he's going to come out just behind Damien Johnston, which is where we would have expected, and he's going to have 1 lap fresher tyres, but he's been showing good pace and has been catching Damien lap after lap, and he's definitely within eyesight now. And it's funny the effect it has once you get a guy a little bit closer to you, that it can have an effect on your driving and just make you push that little bit extra and start closing in that gap. So hopefully we'll be able to see some of that from Chris as he starts to chase down the Gone Rogue Motorsports machine. James Mackay and James Scott have decided to stay out here, going to go a little bit longer. Will they come in this time by? Kai looking a little bit ragged, just a little bit of a lock up into the hairpin. He's decided to come in, so Scott's going to go again and look to get the jump here. He managed to close that gap to Mackay up very quickly in the absence of Forzan El Nabi, so we will see if that has an effect on his pace and if he's able to go the extra lap and put in some qualifying laps to jump both him and Forzan. Will remain to be seen. Forzan's gotten a little bit caught up though with Wayne Burke and potentially a couple of other cars as Mackay comes out of the pit lane and he's going to come out just ahead. Oh, no! Contact surely as Forzan ran pretty deep into that corner. Not sure. Yeah, he's going to redress the position, which is very good to see. And, guys, this is going to be massive for James Scott. And look, Damian Johnston's right back in the mix now, as is probably and potentially Chris Coxhead. So, yeah, James Scott has just absolutely lucked out on this. And he's probably, if he can come out this time by, you can see Forzan was just way too ambitious on the brakes into turn number 1 there. He, you can see it. You can see your opponent coming out of the pits. You know you have to beat him to the corner. And, yeah, he was not going to make that. He was not going to make that.
He actually left him quite a bit of room on that inside too as well. Unlike what we saw earlier with Shawn Thompson, he left El Nabi quite a bit of room on that inside to have a look. And that was probably half the reason for the incident too. El Nabi saw a gap and deceptive looking gap, that one. The closing speed is massive, and unfortunately, a bit of contact, but fortunately, they both keep going. But as you mentioned, James Scott should, in theory, be the huge winner from this round of pit stops once he does eventually make his pit stop. I know James Scott did win another time slot of this the official series this week as well, so he knows how to get it done around this racetrack in these temps this week as well. So he's got a bit of experience. He knows when to make his pit stop. We're going to replay up on screen. This is Simon Mizomo making a move up the inside. He's locked the rears and around he goes, and
I don't know what to say about that.
Mizomo has lost control of the vehicle.
Yeah, wow.
Again.
Simon. Yeah. I don't think there's much more to say about that. We'll, yeah, maybe stick to the safety car. Thanks for that one, Jay. I'll credit Jay for that little joke there. Thanks, Jay. We get back to it, and yeah, so this has really opened up the lead of this race quite intensely, and Wayne Burke is not afraid to get involved for the lead of this race as well. He obviously still has to come in and take service, but he doesn't mind getting involved, and Scott is in. So he's gone out quite a bit longer than a lot of these guys, so in theory, if the pace has been good from Mackay since he got out the front of this pack, they may be able to come out just ahead of him, but I think it's a pretty ambitious thought, and James Scott is going to come out. Oh, come on, not again, not again, not again, not again. No, we're going to get it. So Mackay does come out just behind Scott, who's going to be on cold tyres, and through this section of track, that's going to be pretty painful. So Scott is going to lose a lot of his advantage right here, but pretty much once he's come through this section of the track, he's going to have enough grip to start pushing once again, and this next section is really where he has to keep his defenses up because Mackay's got hot tyres. He's going to try and go around the outside. Surely not, but it's going to give him not as good momentum as I would have thought. He's actually lost quite a lot of ground out of that, and maybe just going for the opportunity a little bit too soon there for Mackay. But this is, yeah, really switched up the lead of the race. So it's now Scott from Mackay, from El Nabi, and then just behind them, we have Johnston and Coxhead. Now, that's our effective race lead. Our current race leader is, of course, Brenton Hobson, who's fighting with Michael Taliancic, but they do still need to take service, and we would expect both of these drivers to be coming out around 8th and 9th position, and they are not going to be coming into the pits. Now, there is potentially, because I'm quite sure that these guys have 100% fuel tonight. If some people are saving fuel very heavily throughout this race, there is the potential, possibly, that one could finish without coming in and taking service. There's one person I wouldn't put that past on this grid, and it's Michael Talyancic. He's continuing out on track, and he's got Branson Hobson ahead of him, who's also been showing, you know, he's not been really pushing it too hard this race. Pace hasn't quite been there. Maybe he's been fuel saving. Maybe those guys are planning on going a lot deeper into this race than we thought. We'll have to see. But potential interesting storyline for this race. And we'll see how that plays out. But for the time being, they are still continuing around. And Hobson is, it does appear to be fuel saving as well. Though they're not helping themselves by tripping up over each other, because they're having a little bit of a battle right now. And it's not over who can save the most amount of fuel. It's over who has track position, and it's not going to work. It's not going to work for them if they keep on battling, because these guys are right behind them now, and they are filled to the brim with fresh rubber on.
Well, if we entertain this theory of them saving fuel going to the end as well, don't forget Talyancic is tucked in that draft of Hobson, so you would expect him to not battle Hobson for that reason too. He's going to save a bit of fuel being in that draft. I don't think they were battling. I think Hobson made a mistake down there at Melbourne Hairpin, which ran him wide, and Talyancic opted not to go by him when he probably could have, so I don't think they're battling. I think they probably are saving, but they're very close to the front end of James Scott, and Scott's ranging up to the back of them last time by 2 seconds quicker than Talyancic, so that battle's going to come really close. Speaking of a really close battle, this is further down the order. Damien Johnstone, Wayne Burke. Wayne Burke, one of the drivers who hasn't pitted. Johnstone and Coxon, of course, have pitted. They both finally made their way around Wayne Burke, and they've lost a bit of time to that top three of before the pit stops. Elnabi, Scott, and Mackay in the process trying to get around number 3 car. Burke put up a stout defense and made himself very wide and difficult to pass, but they got it done finally. Now they can look to start attacking these guys as Talyancic almost pushing Hobson around to the final corner now. And they begin lap number 24, and they have just a 1.5 second lead over James Scott. He cut it in half last time round. If these guys are trying to go to the end, will they choose to try and defend James Scott, or will they give up the notion of winning the race and try and finish as high up as possible and let him go, not fight him, and maybe try for a top 5 result maybe?
Yeah, I'd probably try and fight it just for the fun of it. But I reckon that these guys are going to try and go to the end. And there's a change of position. Oh, is there? Not quite. Oh, yeah, this is not helping these guys at all. But I reckon these guys and Wayne Burke are all trying to go to the end without taking service here. And James Scott, well, he's not going to like the look of this because he's got a little bit of an advantage here. It's not a massive one. And I think he can see how quickly it is going to deteriorate if these guys battle ahead of him and he has to get held up by this. And they are going to battle ahead of him. And he is not going to like this at all. And he's just not quite in a position where he can make a lunge and make a move. And both of these guys are taking up half of the racetrack, if not more. And he really wants to find a way through. But these guys are racing for position. And he's going to race them for position in a moment as well. But there's nowhere to go. So Mackay and Elnabi here. Oh, down at the inside. And Talyancic is not having any of it. A little bit of contact with Hobson there. And this is, that is actually stellar for Scott. He's going to get that move done, no problem. Michael Talyancic didn't want to give it up, although was pretty much a done deal given the state of his tyres and everything like that. So now Scott has 2 cars between him and his realistically nearest competitor. And James Mackay, great move. Very late on the brakes, just manages to pull it up and using that tyre advantage to make his way past Brenton Hobson there. Very nice move from the Pursuit Sim Racing driver, and he will get no troubles from his team boss, I am sure, as he tries to come through. And Forzan Elnabi's really pushing the limits here, and Brenton Hobson just taps the brake pedal and says, corner's yours, get on through. I don't want to lose any time. You don't want to lose any time. Let's work together. And they get through the corner. You can see there, Talyancic just pulling off and allowing his man through, and is going to probably hold up Forzan Elnabi as much as is humanly possible now. So a little bit of a strategy play here for Talyancic, maybe not even just for himself, but for his team. And we'll have to see how Forzan is able to maneuver his way around the Pursuit Sim Racing machine, because he's already lost a significant amount of time now. And he has, well, luckily he's already made his way past 1 car, so he's only got to get 1 more through, but it is a sister car of the car that he's trying to chase down. And when you are racing for position, almost anything goes. So Michael is, I'm sure, going to be giving him a very hard time in the near future. But just coming up on 9 laps to go now. So we are just over 2/3 through this race. And looks like we have a good battle for the end of the race. James Scott just stretching his legs a little bit, but Mackay still more than certainly there and within striking distance. And Talyancic is, oh, that was a bit, Forzan was really showing his feelings there. Did not like being held up by Michael for that last lap, and Michael actually got out of the gas and let him through, and big swipe across in front of the Pursuit Sim Racing driver there. Forzan Elnabi possibly just showing his distaste of being held up for so long, but that's racing, and he's now got 9 laps to chase down his opponents. But James Scott looking pretty strong at the front of this field at the moment.
He certainly is. Did a great job to get by Talyancic and Hobson without too much contact. A little bit of rubbing as he went by, but nothing untoward, and stretching that gap now to James Mackay. 4/10 quicker last time around the start-finish line. So he's looking comfortable right now as long as he doesn't make a mistake. And Forzan Elnabi is 3 seconds back as well. He might be a bit too far back. And the battle right now is Brenton Hobson and Chris Coxhead. Hobson in 5th place is about to be in 6th place again, because Coxhead's got fresh tyres. He's pushing that car as hard as he can, whereas Hobson trying to save fuel. And Coxhead, wanted to have a look into turn 8, but thought better of it. And he's got a lot more pace than Hobson has right now, as Hobson goes to the inside route, driving it down the white line on the run down towards the S's, lifts off early, lets Coxhead through, and back into P6 for Hobson as Damian Johnston gets it sideways behind him, gets onto the grass and exit. We'll get a replay up of that one. Before that, Johnston was stalling around this racetrack with 21.3 last time. That's quicker than James Mackay, and just turned in a bit too much. Oversteer, middle of the corner, gets him out sideways. Good job to hang on to it. We're losing a bit of time in that battle though. As it's starting to settle out for the top 5 spots now.
Yeah, that was a nice hold there. It was got a lot of oversteer on the mid corner, on the kind of mid entry there. Very bizarre, but managing to gather it up in the Gone Rogue Motorsports machine. But yeah, the cars in the top 5 now have finally kind of sorted themselves out. Although Michael Talyancic is the highest placed off strategy car, and he has Chris Coxhead charging down. Damian Johnston should be coming up on Brenton Hobson pretty soon. He's got fresh tyres as well, and also plenty of fuel to make it to the end of this race. He doesn't have to worry about saving, unlike Hobson and Talyancic, who we believe are going to try and go to the end of this race without putting any fuel in the car during the pit stop, or coming in for a pit stop at all. And just looking a bit further down at Craig Jones, who's chasing down Steve Jansen. Craig had a little bit of trouble earlier with Jamie Stovall. Good battle they were having, but Jamie's now a couple of positions further back after I think he actually, I saw earlier in the race, got together with someone about 5 or so laps to go, so Stovall just sitting a little bit further down the field now, but Craig has marched on and now chasing down Steve Jansen, who's also trying to get ahead of Scott O'Keefe there in his Gone Rogue Motorsports machine. So Gone Rogue Motorsports having a fairly good showing today. Got a car in the top 10 and 2 not too far behind that as well. And Steve Jansen really closing up under brakes there. Michael Talyancic now under immense pressure from Coxhead, which we were expecting. And we'll see where Coxhead is able to get the move done. The other Gone Rogue Motorsports car up ahead is putting the moves on Brenton Hobson just behind now as well. Chris Coxhead, is going to look to the outside. Not quite enough room. There's Michael Talyancic there just trying to use up every little piece of the road to hold up Chris. And he's not going to be able to get it done there. He's going to have much better drive out of this corner though. But I suspect that he will wait until the hairpin. Johnston's not going to wait until the hairpin. Big oversteer moment coming through the Coppice corner there. Very long right-hander. Difficult to gauge when to get on the throttle and how much to get into it. And Steve Jansen now going through on the Gone Rogue Motorsports machine. That was very close to contact there between Scott O'Keefe and Steve Jansen there. Scott having to give up the position. Steve's got the preferred line into the S's chicane here and should, in theory, come out with the position, but round a long way. That was actually stellar to keep that done. That was beautiful to keep that line there. I wonder if he's gotten a slowdown.
Oh, no!
Oh, dear! And
All
Steve
three
Jansen,
of them gone.
How about that? All three cars in just an instant spun around, and Craig Jones is struggling to get that car back into gear. Those gearboxes can be funny when you're trying to rev them.
He's got around again in front of Jamie Stovall, and it's gone from bad to worse, and even worse for Craig Jones. Here's a replay of it.
Yeah,
the brakes, he just got into the side of Jansen, and then on the brakes again, he locked it up and into the back of O'Keefe. Really unfortunate for Craig Jones there. He just one braking zone has been disastrous for these three.
Kind of difficult to kind of difficult to tell exactly what happened there. Looks like he stalled the car when he was spinning it around as well, so difficulties continue for Craig Jones, who was actually driving himself fairly well throughout this race up until that point. We're just heading back up to the lead where Forzen El Nabi still trails James Mackay, and they are struggling to catch James Scott, who, once he has gained control of this lead, has not looked back and has been just pretty much holding the guys behind where they are, not eking out too much more of an advantage. He got all of that in the pits, although it has extended just a little bit, and he's been showing good pace with 4 laps to go. It's looking to be an unassailable lead there for James Scott, so it's going to require a mistake or a absolutely mega effort from 2 of the drivers behind to seal the fate of this race. But James Scott in that Evolution Racing Team car looking very good at the moment.
Certainly is, and I think the battle will be for second place between Mackay and El Nabi. The closest battle on track, a little bit further behind these guys. Jamie Stovall, Greg Sharp and Braden Nash, 16th, 17th and 18th, having a great little battle as well. They just sort of opened up as I pointed them out, but they were bumper to bumper a couple corners ago. We'll go back to the front of Talyancic and Damien Johnstone, 5th and 6th. Johnstone looking up the inside. He's pinched the rears. He slides it through the corner, and he slides it around the corner. Tokyo Drift style for Johnstone. Unfortunately, not the fastest way to get a move done, and he does have to settle for the 6th place for now, but that was a very aesthetically pleasing move from John Stone, if it didn't really work in the long run.
Yeah, I feel like we need a soundboard so that we can hit some appropriate drifting noises when people do stuff like that. That car has looked pretty crazy on the rear for the last couple of laps. Oh, and he's now got... Oh, don't think that Michael Taliancic was quite expecting that he'd be there then. He's had to run a completely different line, and Damian Johnston just getting caught out in the off-camber and probably quite a few marbles of that downhill section here at Donington, and loses quite a bit of margin after being side by side just going into the corner. And you can just see the amount of extra grip that he has in that car and how much more he is able to push. And it has to be said though, Michael Taliancic is doing an excellent job, given that he's saving fuel and that he started this race in 9th, currently sitting up in 5th position. The alternate strategy's been working for him pretty well. And with just 3 laps to go, once they complete this lap, it's going to be a very good achievement for him to bring the car home without coming in for service. But Damian Johnston, he's been looking good. He's been able to close that gap up, but he's just not been able to seal the deal and lick the stamp yet. Forzen El Nabi is writing down the location where he wants to send it, and it's down the inside of turn number 1. Is it going to be enough to get the position though for James Mackay, who's surely going to fight this down the hill? A little bit squirrely on the entry there, 2x2. Oh, it's difficult, and this is even more difficult getting through here. Someone's going to have to yield, and it's going to have to be James Mackay, but they're going to have to then go side by side through this next section of corners. Going to make it work just. Forzen El Nabi just skating that car through on the edge of control, and he does not get the move done. So that was a big effort and a lot of use of tyre there, and he has not been able to get the move through. But good driving and respectful driving from both of those guys, because it's not easy to get 2 cars side by side through that section of track here at Donington, given that it's quite a narrow track already. So definitely mad respect to those guys as we go back to Damian Johnston now, who is continuing to fight to find a way past Michael Taliancic. And Michael has been defending very heroically, been looking good on the traction zones, and he's not giving anyone more than an inch of room than they deserve, and a little bit. Oh no! And I think Michael Taliancic has just hit the incident limit with 3 laps to go, and that is very unfortunate for the Pursuit Sim Racing driver. He was running a very good strategy there, and very unfortunate to see it all come undone. But I do have to say, I'm not... Oh, am I surprised? Oh, Brendan Hobson's only gone up into 7th. I thought he had gone up into 6th, but now Brett Cananzi's going to try and take 7th away, because the Eclipse Sim Sports driver has sent it down into turn number 1 and will take that position away from Brenton Hobson, who moves down now into 8th position.
That's a huge shame for Taliancic. He was having a fantastic race, and unfortunately that pesky incident limit has bit him there. But how's that defense from James Mackay just before that incident? That was an amazing defense. You're on the outside of a couple of corners to get that done, and holds off El Nabi, but that battle's not over with yet. They're very close together, making their way towards the penultimate corner on the racetrack, Melbourne Hairpin. There'll be a lap to go when they come across the line. James Scott's got it pretty much wrapped up out front. 4.5 second lead last time by, as El Nabi gets right up to the back of James Mackay, and he's going to have probably 2 more opportunities, maybe turn 1, and the Melbourne Hairpin again to try and get this move done on James Mackay.
Yeah, it's only got 2 to go, or it's actually got 1 to go, so he's going to have to pull out something special here. He's close enough that he can make something work on this lap, I'm sure. And both of these guys will be struggling for adhesion here at Donington Park as we come round for the final time for Forzen El Nabi's Zero Esports car. Looks like it's got good turn in at the moment. Looks like he's got good confidence in that car, and just running a little bit wide for Mackay. on the apex of turn number 5, and that's allowed Forzan El Nabi to just close up marginally. And that small amount that he's closed up will just add pressure to the situation for Mackay, who I'm sure just wants this lap to be over faster than anything. And continuing to push this Forzan El Nabi. About 2 car lengths separating them down the back straight. It's going to be a bit of an effort. It's going to have to be a big lunge into the final couple of corners. Committed on the brakes. Nice run through the S's chicane. Will Mackay go for a bit of a defensive line? No, he doesn't. He's got enough of a gap. Although, very deep there from El Nabi. He's trying to eke out every ounce of performance from the braking of that car, but Evolution Racing Team have played it this evening, and James Scott came in when he needed to, stayed out of trouble, and he takes out round number 4 of the iRacing official V8 Supercars series. James Mackay and Forzan El Nabi have a great battle to come home in the final podium positions, and Chris Coxhead put on a great performance, a good result for him in position number 4 as cars still coming across the line now. And Hobson is out of fuel as he comes across the line, but a valiant effort to come home without taking service. Very good effort from him. I think we might even see Wayne Burke come across the line under similar circumstances, or he already has actually. So
6th place.
Wayne, he came 6th from 21st on the grid without taking any fuel throughout the race. So massive effort there from Wayne Burke. Great race from him. And on screen now, James Scott, your race winner for Evolution Racing Team. And he is going to go off and celebrate, I'm sure. But we'll get our results up for you on screen. James Scott for Evolution Racing Team, your winner this evening. He was followed by James Mackay, who shared the race lead at times with Forzan El Nabi throughout this race, but mistakes from both of them, meaning that they were only good for 2nd and 3rd on the podium this evening, but a well-deserved podium indeed. Chris Coxhead with a strong result in 4th position, and also for Damien Johnston in his Gone Rogue Motorsports machine, a good result for him as well. Wayne Burke finished up in 6th position for One Performance Racing after not taking any fuel throughout that race. A great strategy and up 15 positions. Brett Cananzi in his Eclipse Sim Sports car had an eventful race and ended up in 17th position ahead of Brenton Hobson, another one of our drivers who did not take service this evening. Then in 9th position, I can't see it because Jay hasn't flicked the screen yet. It's Shawn Thompson for KRF Motorsports. 23 seconds off the lead and a little bit in no man's land, but had some nice battling earlier in the race, and Ben Christensen rounds out the top 10 position.
Scott O'Keefe came home in 11th place out of Steve Anderson, who seemed to always be in some form of battle throughout this race, so he comes up into 12th place on the up 2 spots despite all those battles he was in. Christian Smart in 13th place. Mihail Latishov drove a quiet race to gain 6 spots in that one, up to 14th place, and then Braden Nash and Greg Sharp, 15th and 16th in this one. Jamie Stivald and Brenton O'Brien, 17th and 18th, rounding out the top 20. Brendan Jackson and Scott Stevens, and it's your guys who ran into a fair bit of trouble in this one. Mizomo finished a lap down. Talientich with that unfortunate disqualification, 22nd. Craig Jones in 23rd, and then Rob Harris almost riding it out in 24th. Ahead of Corey Preston, who finishes in 25th place.
Yeah, so a couple of unfortunate runs for some of our competitors there, but a great run from Evolution Racing Team's James Scott, your winner this evening. And reminder, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed the racing this evening, make sure you put a thumbs up on the video. Really does help, and also give us a subscribe on the iRacing Esports Network. And if you want to head over to SimSpeed TV and give us a subscribe over there as well, that would be greatly appreciated. It's been an absolute pleasure bringing you round number 4 of the iRacing V8 Supercars official series here this evening on the iRacing Esports Network. We will be rejoining you for the official series again this time next Monday. where we will be racing from Suzuka, which will be very testing indeed. But from myself, Ryan Jones, up in the commentary booth, and Jay Kennedy behind the buttons this evening, we do thank you so much for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going with the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up to
Oh
him.
my god! Oh! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys I want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go.
Oh no!
That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?